like a broken record, but please subscribe and like our presentation, and kindly refer others if you think that this material is worthy of attention. It could be interesting to others. Please refer them to our YouTube channel and to our website. Please ask them to come here and subscribe. And also, for those who may not know, I'm posting my email, not my email, my website, which has hundreds and hundreds of audios and videos, and parsha sheets. evanchasia.com. I have to correct that over here. It should come out correctly as I posted. Oh man. Here we go. evanchasia.com. So that's our website. Go there. And also, don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Soon we'll have Be'ezrat Hashem an interface that jumps from the website to the YouTube channel, and from the YouTube channel to the website. Anyways, thank you all for coming. Tonight's mimer is entitled Chanukah Wars 2019. It's the name of the series. This is the War of the Words. And to understand, to get into the heart of the issue, let's throw out a few questions. So first of all, no Maimer on Hanukkah starts without raising the famous kasha of Beis Yosef. Why is Hanukkah 8 days long? It was only a 7-day miracle, not an 8-day miracle, because there was enough oil for one night. Okay, you can't start any mimer without throwing out that question. So hold that question, because we're going to give another angle on one of the answers that there are to that question. All right, so have that question in mind. The Chag of Chanukah. Right? We the way it's said in the most surah, the way it's right. They say ufortzu chomos migdalai. They broke into the walls of our towers, v'timu kol hashmanim, right, and then they filed all the oils. Right? So as if the essence of what they did was to break in, to the Chomos Migdolai. What are the Chomos Migdolai? Obviously, it has to be referring somehow to the Beis Hamikdash, because that's where they broke in, right? And remember, the Rambam also, when he gives his brief summary of the story of Hanukkah, at the very beginning of Hilchos Hanukkah, he says, "Portubo Kurtos." They made holes in the walls of the Beis Hamikdash. That seems to be like the essence of what they did wrong. They're not talking about the details of how they legislated against Bris Milah and those things. The Rambam talks about in general. Bitlu datam v'inicham l'aseh Torah mitzvahs. They abolished our religion. They didn't let us do mitzvahs properly. So as far as all the famous things that they outlawed, the mitzvahs that they outlawed, the Rambam speaks about them in very general terms. The only thing that he mentions specifically, is that they broke in and they defiled, they defiled the Beis Hamikdash, which is exactly what the Most Surah says. It seems to me, I would guess. I don't know who authored the Most Surah, but I have no doubt that the Most Surah copied from the Rambam. Based his, the segment of that poem that deals with Hanukkah was taken straight from the Rambam. And we understand why that's like the essence of what Hanukkah is all about, even though the details are many. including that they legislated against bris milah, kiddush chodesh, Shabbos, and mitzvahs in general. Okay, so we'll have to talk about that. But let's read on in the Mosur. Umi noisar kan kanim nasa nes la shoshanim. Right, what was left off, what was left over from the kankanim. Right, so it's interesting. It uses the term kankanim. We always talk about pach nes pach Hashem. Right? We are the most sur is changing the famous term for jug, which is used in our literature, Nes Pach Hashem, right? Changed from Pach, right, to Kan. And there's a message there. That, there probably is, a message also in Pach, but we want to discuss Kan, and this should automatically create an association, right, to the famous Mishnah of us. Al tistako bakan elamasha betocho. Don't look at the jug or the barrel. Look at what's in it, and it refers to a person, refers to a human being, right? It was a metaphor, right? That don't look at whether because you can have a person who's young, right? The whole the whole Mishnah is in that metaphor. You have a new barrel that's full of good quality old wine, aged wine. You have a old barrel, right? That has not even new wine in it. So don't look, but the kankan el masha betocho, and it's all a metaphor for a person and a person and his wisdom. You have a young man full of the same type of wisdom that old people can, old people have, if anyone has it. And you could have a young guy, a old guy rather, who's totally empty. But it's interesting, and there's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to show that when the Moshe was being written, so he had that Rambam in mind, and he had that Mishnah in mind when whoever authored the Moshe put together that stanza that refers to the story of Chanukah, right? And Zof, Nasis Shoshanim, so that Klal Yisrael is called the Shoshana because we have all the beautiful colors like a rose, right? And we're surrounded by thorns. It's our enemies and the Yetzer Hara surrounds us. Right? That's all. That's in Chazal, and that's also in the very beginning in that Dom of the Zohar. So just right here, whoever wrote the Moshe wasn't just Stam a poet. This guy was very, very learned. You see Rambam there, you see Ovis there, you see a Zohar there, right? But what's interesting is that he goes on to say, "B'nei bina yemei shmona kavucher," the children of understanding. Why does it say chachamim, right? B'nei bina, b'nei bina, right? The children of bina, children of understanding, set up the 8 days, right? Shir urunanim kavu, right? And by the way, over there, he's alluding to the Rambam again, the Mosur, and I challenge. So I don't know who wrote the Mosur. I'm willing to put money down. I'm kidding, I'm not a betting man, but I'm saying I would like someone to please research this. Who wrote the Mosur? I am betting a gentleman's bet. He lived after the time of the Rambam, and he had the Rambam in mind when he wrote that stanza, because that is, even though it's different words, but in context, the Rambam says, may hallel b'simcha. According to Rambam, the essence of the days of Hanukkah are days of Hallel, and that's why the Rambam, true to form, just 2 halachas later, decides to discuss Hallel. He doesn't get back to the laws of the Hanukkah candles until the next parak. It's like the essence of the days are 8 days of Hallel, and there's also a mitzvah to light the candle at night. Right? Read the Rambam. It says you b'nei bina yemei shmona kavu shir u'renanim. Right? We 8 days of praise. It's about from the Rambam. Right? So this man, he definitely was a Rambamist. With obviously taking something from the Mishnah and Ovis, and taking, Shoshanim, but there's more Chazals, but it's also a Zohar, particularly in the Hakdama. But, there are the Chazals that, Shoshana Sa'amakim, like Shoshana Ben Achochim. Right? Yeah, it didn't have to necessarily be from the Zohar. It's the pshat in the pasuk. In in Shir Hashirim. It refers to Klal Yisrael, right? Roshanim, because like the Zohar explains, we have all the beautiful colors, red and white, which is din and rachamim. We have all the good midas. Right? Okay, but I do want to just concentrate on kankanim, b'nei bina, right? And fortzu chomos migdolai. They broke the walls of my towers, right? And that also, if you should do like a word search in your head, almost migdalai. That should immediately, bring up to mind a pasuk also from Shir Hashirim. Ani choma v'shadai kamigdalos. I am like a wall, and my breasts are like towers. Right? That Chazal darshan that on the Torah. The Torah and the towers are the Talmidei Chacham that teach the Torah, right? And we're going to discuss that. And there's no question that the Rambam had, that's breaking the walls of the Beis Hamikdash has to do with the Torah. We'll discuss all of this. But before we get back to all of this, that we're really decoding, everything that's being hinted to in the Rambam and in the most Sur. Right? Before we get back to decode all that, so let's just point out a historical point and a kind of an irony that goes along with it. The Yom Tov of Chanukah, right, is a Yom Tov of Torah Shebaal Peh. There is no Megillas Chanukah. Because the whole story happened after the era of Tanakh was over. Anshe Sagdol had already sealed the Tanakh. Esther was the last thing to make it in. As you know, for the sugya in Megillah, I think it's on Daf Zion, right? That she had a whole to do it back and forth deciding whether they would add her Megillah to the Torah Shebechsav or not. Whether it would have a din of Kisvei HaKodesh. So Purim just made it in. And there's a Megillas Purim, Megillas Esther, right, that we read on Purim. It's one of the books of the Tanakh, and has all the dinim of a sefer, right? Not only that, also a Rambam from the end of Hilchos Megillah that he understands Lashon Chazal. That in the future, he takes the Chazal literally. That in the future, we're going to do away with Nevi'im and Ksuvim. We're only going to have the Chumash, Torah Shebaal Peh, and Megillas Esther. Now he thinks that that's not only did Megillas Esther make it into Torah Shebechsav, the only other thing aside from Chumash that we're going to have in the future, and of course there's a Torah Shebaal Peh, right? Okay, but let's not digress into Chanukah talk, into Purim talk rather. Let's stick to Chanukah, all right? So Chanukah is after that era. It is from the era where all we had is like our situation today. We only had the Torah Shebaal Peh, right? And that's why, interesting enough, the Rambam tells a little bit of the story of Chanukah, like we mentioned, and he doesn't do that in Hilchos Megillah when discussing. He doesn't discuss what happened in the days of Purim. In Hilchos Chametz U'Matzah, he doesn't really discuss the details. He doesn't give a narrative of what happened Pesach time, but he just mentioned some halachas in order to be Yotzei Sipri Yetzias Mitzrayim. And the answer is simple because the Rambam writes in his Hakdama, to the Mishnah Torah, that he expects you to learn his book together with Tanakh. All right, so you don't need him to tell you the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. You'll read it in the Chumash. You don't need him to tell you the story of Purim. You'll read it in the Megillah, right? Because you learned out of the book. But there is no book of Torah Shebechsav that accompanies, that chronicles, right, the story of Chanukah, and therefore he has to tell you a little synopsis of the story. It's totally a Yom Tov of Torah Shebaal Peh. As Gemara says, it's Purim, even though it's is the last holiday that was allowed to be committed to writing, and become part of that as the last miracle that was allowed to be added to the Torah Shabbat. Hanukkah is Loni Tanli Kase. It's totally a Yom Tov of Torah Shabbat, totally oral, right? There is Megillah Antiochus not Kisvei HaKodesh, Sefer HaMakbim is not Kisvei HaKodesh, right? None of these things, these books, they're the Hanukkah is only to be found not even in Mishnah, which is a quasi book. It's where Torah Shabbat Peh, behaves like a book. It's in Brises. It's like really, really, literally off the books, right? And I mean that in a good way, not in a, right? It's off the books, right? So, so there's certain ironies. So it's totally Torah Shabbat, totally oral, and that was what was developed. The Torah Shabbat that we know today was all formulated actually from the time of during that Second Temple period, right? We don't find even though we always had Torah Shabbat Peh ever since Torah was given, but the whole emphasis was put there, and then the whole formulation of Torah Shabbat Peh is from that era. You won't find any that the Mishnah or the Gemara will quote from anyone who lived before Shimon HaTzadik. And it is called kulo, a Yom Tov of Torah Shabbat Peh. It's not, and for that reason, that's the secret. It's not even in the Mishnah, because the Mishnah is like a quasi book. It's not really a book, but it's written as if it were a book. It was meant to be memorized, and it was only put in writing. Veisas Hashem, but it's really, so Mishnah behaves like a book, right? As the original form of Torah Shabbat Peh is like to be built as a commentary around Chumash, like the Safra and the Sifrei and the Mechilta, right? And the Talmud also, it's not a book. It's a commentary around the Mishnah. Mishnah behaves like a book, and perhaps for that reason also, Hanukkah's not even in the Mishnah. It's the laws of Hanukkah. It's only mentioned here and there. And there's a mention of it. You could still bring Bikurim until Hanukkah, right? There's something along those lines. Just mentions the holiday, and then there's a Mishnah in Baba Kama, right? That that Rabbi Yehuda will exempt you for Nizkei Eish done with the Ner Hanukkah, because since it has to be on the outside, the outside of the house. So let people passing in the public domain beware, because it's Hanukkah, and people put their Hanukkah candles on the outside, and that's it. Because it is so off the books. So it's not even in the Mishnah. I say this is not part of the address I want to deliver tonight, but I understand since it's bachutz, near base, and a Pesach base only bachutz, right? It's the light that's on that shines outwards, and that's why it should even be Yerzemitzah Anicha. I don't know if this is the final halacha, but the Gemara does suggest, actually, in reference to that halacha, that that let the passerbys beware on Hanukkah, because people are going to leave their Hanukkah candles on the outside of their houses, and that therefore, from there we drive it, which should be put within 10 tefachim. Right, it's a mitzvah to put it there, because if it could be higher up, to put it higher up, and then it won't interfere with with the traffic in the Rosh Hashanah public domain, right? So it has to be lamata me'asar, and now the Gemara says in Sukkah, me'olam lo yarad shechina lamata me'asar tefachim. Right, the Shechina never, as it were, invaded our space below 10 tefachim. Right, and that's what the schach of the Sukkah represents. It has to be from 10 tefachim and higher. The schach represents the Shechina. Shechina doesn't go lower than 10, and Ner Hanukkah does go lower than 10. It's the divine light that shines outwards, that goes down, where the Shekhinah doesn't go. And that's all part of another dissertation I have. But I'm just mentioning that I understand that's why it's in Brisa. Brisa means on the outside. Mishnah's like in, Brisa's out, and so parallels the idea of Ner Hanukkah. It's the light that shines outwards. Parallel to that, it's in Brisa. It's bar. It's on the outside. It reaches on the outside. It shines out to the lost Jews, to the Jews that are very low. It goes down Regel, down to the legs. Right, so that's why it's in Brisa. But getting back to the main point, Hanukkah is not much off the books to the point that even the aspect of Torah Shabbat Peh that behaves like a book, which is the Mishnah per se, the rest of Torah Shabbat Peh is in its original form of commentary. Talmud is a commentary on Mishnah. Bechulta, Safra, Sifrei are commentaries built around Chumash. Right? Even Tosefta is, it's pretty much additions to the Mishnah, so it's really built around the Mishnah. I like the Rambam says Lefaresh in Yoneh Mishnah clarifies. So it's like so even Tosefta. Sometimes it sounds like it's a parallel work to Mishnah, but it's really there to enhance and be a form of commentary on the Mishnah. So Mishnah is the one aspect of Torah that is a book, as it were. It was in book form, and Hanukkah's not there. So even like the oral book of the Mishnah, or the book form that the oral took, even there Hanukkah's not. It's low nitan likase, right? To the point that's not even in the Mishnah, right? So I hope that's clear. But the main point is, so what's the irony? It's totally oral, right? And it's only should be only. So Hanukkah theoretically should only be heard and not be seen because a book you read, right? A book, the Tanakh comes, let's say the classical books of the Tanakh. What makes it into the Tanakh? What type of information? Prophecies, things that were said Baruch HaKodesh, that's Ksuvim. The Nevuah, that's Nevi'im, right? Nevuas Moshe, right, is Chumash, right? So on everything from Nevuas Moshe down to divine inspiration of Ksuvim, right? Those are the types of things that make it into Torah B'Chsav, right? Which is visible and it's perfectly parallel. Right, the Navi sees. Moshe Rabbeinu saw Hashem. He had the highest level of seeing, right, that no other Navi can ever come. And even the Ksuvim, where it's not Nevuah Mamish, but it's still Ruach Hakodesh. In your mind's eye, you see it. Your intelligence is augmented. You see things differently than other people because they're getting augmentation of intelligence. Right, so that type of stuff. Right, that's what becomes a book, right? Just like the person saw it in prophetic vision, right? Or he saw it in his mind's eye because his intelligence was augmented. He sees things differently. So that's what, so parallel to that goes into a book, which is the visible Torah. Just like he saw it, it also becomes black on white that we could also see it. Just we see it as letters, as black and white. And he saw the thing that the letters referred to, but it's parallel, right? What was captured in a quote unquote, visual way, relatively, in a manner of speaking, what was visual to he who got that information in the first place also becomes, part of the Tanakh, which is the visible Torah. So Hanukkah, which was totally Torah Shabbat, it should be totally invisible, right? So why is the mitzvah to light a candle, which is vision? Right? It's an interesting irony to keep in mind. Since it's a Yom Tov of Torah Shabbat Peh, why is the Ikar mitzvah to light a candle? Now there's a hint there. It's to light a candle. Now we know from, it's based on a famous Tanchuma, and the Arizal is very mocked on this, that we only learn Torah Shabbat Peh at night. We learn Mikra during the day, but at night we should not learn Mikra. We should not learn Torah Shabbat at night, only Torah Shabbat Peh. So there's something about the candle of Hanukkah that, that it clearly, even though it's light, it's visual, right? But it's an aspect of how Torah Shabbat Peh could become visual, but not visual like the Mishnah, right? It's a different aspect, and we're going to define that. We're going to discuss it. It's just like food for thought. There's a little bit of an irony here, and yet not. It's a Yom Tov Torah Shabbat Peh. So why is it visual? But yeah, it's visual at night, which is a time when it's the time of Torah Shabbat Peh, not the time of Torah Shabbat. I just want to tell you how far the Kabbalists are mocked on this. Anyone ever to go to a Svardisha Chanukah Sabayis, Chanukah Tabayit, right? Which is a good thing to do if it's your first time moving house, which is it's so apropos we mentioned it's Chanukah Sabayis, Mizmor Chanukah Sabayis, Chanukah Samishkan, and like the Ramban says, the payback is that they did a new Chanukah, right, in the days of the Chashran. That was the payback for Aaron, who didn't participate in Chanukah Sandesim. Well, you got another Chanukah, right? The payback. You do Chashran did a Chanukah, Chanukah, inaugurating. They re-inaugurated the Beis Hamikdash. That's the way the Ramban learns, right? So actually, there's not even. So this example really is very pertinent to what we're saying. We should just like we light Hanukkah candles on our houses. That represents. We gave a whole drasha on this yesterday. Um, and taking the house back 2 days ago. On this channel, don't miss it. Take Hanukkah Wars 2019, taking the house back. Right. Our houses should all be like mini basements. We want to bring the Shekhinah, divine presence, into our house. When we have shalom bias with our spouses, Chazal say if you have shalom bias, right, so the Shekhinah dwells there, and the menorah that we light is like the menorah of the Beis Hamikdash, and just like the Beis Hamikdash. This we didn't say, so pay close attention. There's some medrash points this out. In the Beis Hamikdash, the way Shlomo built them is that the windows of the Beis Hamikdash were thin on the inside and wide on the outside, which means it didn't take in sunlight because the window converged on the inside. So any light that went in, got focused to like a useless single ray, right? But it was the opposite from the light of the menorah. It went through the thin slit and then got dispersed widely, because that's how the windows were constructed. That light, which the Beis Hamikdash would light up its environs, right? But outer light wouldn't light up the Beis Hamikdash. The windows were designed to disperse light from inside out and not take in light, because divine light should be influencing the way we look at life, and the secular light, the natural light, should not be influencing the way we look at holiness. Holiness has its own light, and that should shine upon the outside world. The light and perspective of the outside world shouldn't shine in, right? And that's also our Hanukkah candles. We put them by the window or by the doorway to shine out, right? So apropos, right? So, and of course, when you move into a new house, do a Chanukah Sabayis. It would just be so poetically, be great if you could move into a new house on Hanukkah, right? Or alternatively, move into a new house on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right, to a parallel, how they, that's when the original Chanukah Samishkan was. No advantage of moving into a new house for Rosh Chodesh Nisan is that your Pesach cleaning will be a heck of a lot easier. Think about it. Anyway, but when you ever move to a house, you want the Jewish home should be a place of holiness. It should be a little Beis Hamikdash. It should be Shalom Bayis, and the Shekhinah should dwell there, in the within the tranquility of the pure Jewish home. So, we do a Chanukah Sabayis. By the way, it's a Sudas mitzvah. Chanukah Sabayis, Sudas mitzvah, halacha l'masa. The Yam Shel Shlomo in the 7th parak of Baba Kama brings it. It is a bona fide Sudas mitzvah. Not only that, so back in the old days, I should say in the Marshal's time and place, he says that what they did to inaugurate the house and make it a holy house, bring holiness, is that the Balabais would say a drasha, learn Torah over that Suda. So he says over there, listen to what the Marashal says. And I actually discussed this at great length in my eldest son's bar mitzvah drasha that I wrote for him. Marashal says over there, if in the event that you are doing a bar mitzvah for your son, right? But it's not the bo bayom. In my day, no one was makbin on bo bayom, right? But even though it's a worthwhile thing to do, as the Marshal says, if you catch it on the day, it's a sudas mitzvah because it became chuv mitzvahs. But as often is the case, you push it off to the Shabbos afterwards, as you make the big, you get the Aliyah, and sometimes, because of necessity, the bar mitzvah is only celebrated much later. And that's not a modern thing. That the Marshal references the problem. That, as let's say his bar mitzvah was on a fast day, It was always a problem, especially when Jews were poor. So you want to do it on the following Shabbos, because you have to make Shabbos anyway. It's easier to have guests come over. So the Marshal Ray referenced the problem that the bar mitzvah is rarely celebrated exactly when the boy turns 13. So is it still a Sudas mitzvah? Asked the Marshal. Marshal says, absolutely. You know why? Because the bar mitzvah boy says a drasha, which could be the source of why we put the boy through this torture. Right? It says because the mitzvah boy says a drasha, and as a din of Sudas mitzvah because of his drasha. And what is the prototype? What is the original textbook example? That because of a drasha, it is a Sudas mitzvah, Chanukah Sabayis. Right? So it goes like this, right? But a bar mitzvah not on the birthday, but it's a Sudas mitzvah because the boy said a drasha. It's a derivation from the Suda of Chanukah Sabayis. So really, ladies, gentlemen, whenever you move into a new house, it's a real Sudas mitzvah, and he brings a medrash. Ichru dodim shisu v'shichru ichru reim shisu v'shichru dodim. That pasuk of Shir of come, eat, drink. That was Chanukah Sabayis. That was Chanukah Samishkan. And then the Maharshal says anytime Yid makes a Chanukah Sabayis, right? It's a Sudas mitzvah. And what empowers it? That also it's a suit of Chanukah Sabayis. What makes it Chanukah Sabayis? The drasha. Right. All right. And that was the custom back in the day, in the Marshal's time and place. The Baal Bais had to say a pshetel, and that's how he brought Torah into his new home, right? And so the Bar Mitzvah boy, his Bar Mitzvah is not any less than that, right? But you know, but the point I want to get to, I digress. You have to forgive me. It's hard to shut the mind off, right? So the Chidah, composed this to say, is Malaki, Divrei Torah that has to do with bias from Mishnah, from Talmud, from Rambam, from Zohar. And why people are not going to want to go through that, what they do is they make sure to have a minion, not just for the purpose of saying Kaddish at the end, and and not for the purpose, just for the purpose of if you're going to have it at night, you want to be able to make a minion mark over there, and after people are not to have a minion because they divide it up. It's so long. It's like pages and pages and pages. So you just divide it up. You say from you say these 10 pages, you say those 10 pages, something like that. So the Chidah, so that's what the Chidah said. Why you have I'll give you a text to say. Well, not really a text because it was all from Torah Sheba'al Peh, right? Divrei Torah have to do with the house, and that's what that you'll make Chanukah Sabayis. Right, so he says over there, you'll notice not a single pasuk is in this compendium. It's a whole booklet. It's like a whole little book of things to say by your Chanukah Sabayis. Divrei Torah that all have to do with house. But it's nothing from Torah Shebechsa. Nothing. Right? It's all from Mishnah, Mishnah, Gemara, Rambam, Zohar, all from Torah Sheba'al Peh. And he says, why? Because I know from experience, no one does the Chanukah. It's hard, you want to do Chanukah Sabayis, you're going to do it at night. No one does it in the middle of the day. People have to work, right? People have to work, right? Or, have their regular, people get together for a Suda at night. So it's going to be nighttime. At nighttime, you're not allowed to learn Torah Shebechsav. I'm very naked on the Azhara of the Ari not to learn Torah Shebechsav at night. So that's how far it goes. Right there, those are super makpid that they don't, they won't say a pasuk at night, unless it's part of the, Nusach HaTfilah, like Kriya Shema of night. But they won't learn Torah Shebechsav at night. So much so, that the Chidah could have easily brought plenty of psukim that discuss bias and he doesn't not a single pasuk in that big that booklet that he composed to say by Chanukah Sabayis because he says I've noticed that people only do the Chanukah Sabayis at night. That's when they have time, to do it, and guests can come over. Okay, so obviously there must be an aspect of Torah Sheba'al Peh that is light also, even though Torah Sheba'al Peh should be invisible and only, auditory. Right, it's oral and auditory. Right, so there's an irony over here that the mitzvahs with candles. Okay, so like to to understand this a little bit. the what the real crux of the nace of Hanukkah, what it was about, what the struggle was about, and how that fit perfectly with the time period that juncture in history, that particular time in history and destiny. You know, you know what the struggle was and how it was so apropos to that time and place. Right? You know, Hanukkah is the last of our miracle, historically, last miracle that ever happened to us on our calendar, right? Short 200 years later, after story of Hanukkah, we went into this long and bitter exile that we're in until this very day. And we mentioned this, that therefore we must, view it that Hanukkah is still happening because that mass miracle it's we're still burning that oil and keeps us going until this day, until Mashiach comes. There's Purim, even though it happened earlier in history. The one that happened right before was Purim. But Purim also was a miracle that happened within the exile, so we draw strength from Purim also. Hanukkah and Purim are what's keeping us going, right, until Mashiach comes. Purim because it happened within the Babylonian exile, and Hanukkah because even though it didn't happen when we were in exile, it happened when we were in the land of Israel. We're going to, qualify that. We were still, in our homeland, and we still had a temple. It was defiled, but we had one. But it's the last miracle in our history, till Mashiach comes. So we're still living off Hanukkah also by virtue it's the closest thing for us to draw strength from. So Purim because it was a Chag within the Golus, so we could tap into Purim being in Golus. We have the Purim precedent, right? And we have Hanukkah being the very last miracle in our history. We're still burning that oil, right? Right. And I think that's self-understood. So, so, but so Hanukkah is it's our last Chag. It's Rabbanan, right? But it's of our Chagim, the Rice and Rabbanan. It's the last one historically, one latest in history. What's our first one? Think carefully. Pesach. We had Pesach even before we had Shabbos. We were only commanded in Shabbos earliest in Morah, which was after Kriyas Yamsuf, right? There's Pesach was our very first Chag as a nation, but it wasn't our very first mitzvah, right? Things started changing from when Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and that's the very first Rashi and Chumash, right? The name of Rabbi Yitzchak the Turkov just started from Hachoresh Zelachem Rosh Chodashim. That was our first mitzvah we got as a people, right? That means the new world order. That was on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Right? We went out of Mitzrayim 2 weeks later, but that prophecy gave us our first mitzvah, and also, as the way the Chumash says it, together with that prophecy was given all the laws and the laws and also the procedure for our liberation, all the mitzvahs of Pesach that they were supposed to celebrate a short 2 weeks later. Right, so it's like that was the whole trigger of the new world order that came to full bloom when we left Egypt 2 weeks later. It was the first mitzvah that we got, Kiddush HaChodesh. Right? And that's the secret behind what the Haggadah says. The Haggadah brings the Brisa, Yachol Merosh. I think it's the Brisa, right? Yachol Merosh Chodesh. Come along, I might think you're chayv to start telling the story of the Exodus from Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But Paul says, Bayom Ahu, we got to be on that day, that specific day, which is the day at the time when you have, matzah and morah in front of you. So why should we think that you should start recounting the story of the Exodus on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right? Because things started changing already by Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Our liberation, in effect, was beginning then, because we first got our first mitzvah as a people, the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, which what Greeks legislated against. So there's something about our Chagim going full circle. The first mitzvah that we got that ushers in the new era of Yitzias Mitzrayim. It starts on Rosh Chodesh, comes to full bloom on Yitzias Mitzrayim. The Torah only obligates us to tell over the Exodus on the day of Pesach. There was a Havamina that start from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, because on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, when things started to change for us with the mitzvah that we got of Achar Zachem Rosh Chodesh, which, interestingly enough, that's what the Greeks legislated against. One of the three major things that they legislated against was Kiddush HaChodesh. Right? That's something amazing to keep in mind, right? And of course, another connection, a more obvious one between Pesach and Chanukah is Pesach Chag Cherutzeinu, and Chanukah also. We got liberated from the Greeks, right? Right? We regained our liberation, and think about that. None of our holidays have that theme. Even Purim, we were saved from extermination, but we weren't liberated. The whole reason, Rava's reason in the Gemara of why we don't say Hallel on Purim is because Akati Avdei Achashverosh. We were still slaves of Achashverosh. We weren't liberated. We were saved from extermination, but we weren't liberated. We were still ruled by Achashverosh. We were still in Golus. And to say Hallel, you have to be Hallelujah, Hallelu, Avdei Hashem, V'lo Avdei Paro. That's be similar to Tzias Mitzrayim. That we praise as servants of Hashem, those who serve Hashem only, right? As opposed to serving Paro. So Hallel we say on Pesach. Chanukah fits that criteria because we're Avdei Hashem and not Avdei Antiochos. Purim doesn't fit that. And that's why we don't say Hallel on Purim. We're Akati, Avdei Achashverosh. We're still slaves to Achashverosh. We just got out of that decree that he signed on for us to be exterminated. We still remained as slaves, right? So Hanukkah and Pesach, our very first Chag and our very last Chag in our history to date, both Chagim of liberation, and in both there's the idea of Kiddush HaChodesh. And now, Hanukkah is a Chag of Torah Shebal, right? Right. And now, even though Pesach is a Chag of Torah Shebechsav, it takes up a lot of space in the Chumash, right? The whole Sefer Shmos is kind of, it's called Sefer Agula, Exodus, right? But nonetheless, what is a big mitzvah of Pesach that's still Doraisa, even in this day and age? We don't have a temple. We lost the mitzvah, not lost. Sadly, the mitzvah, of bringing the Korban Pesach is in a hiatus, right? But there's another mitzvah, Doraisa, say tonight, in Bismazeh, Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, tell over, say, speak, the story of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Pesach has a Torah Shabbat Peh aspect to it. And with this, you can understand that the Haggadah that we say, the Baal Haggadah formalized what we should say. It really was originally supposed to be freestyle. That's supposed to sort of Shmos. And we don't. The Baal Haggadah does not go through the narrative of Shmos. He uses as a base the narrative from Sefer Devarim, which also has a Torah Shabbat Peh aspect to it, as that Oktab Elad Varsher Diber Moshe. Right, it's what Moshe Rabbeinu said that Hashem commanded him to write after he had said it. Right, it's Elad Varsher Diber Moshe. Right, so that's the base, and we darshan on it. It's all brushes on those psukim, and even those psukim are not from Sefer Shemos; they're from Sefer Devarim, Dibor, Lashon Dibor. Right, amazing. Right, and now to tighten this connection, going back to Kiddush HaChodesh, right? Kiddush HaChodesh, was the first mitzvah that we got. That ushers in the new era of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Right? That's what the Yevonim, one of the things they legislated against. Also interesting, we were commanded in Bris Milah in Mitzrayim still. Yevonim legislated against Bris Milah. Right? But I want to put the focus on, Kiddush HaChodesh. How Kiddush HaChodesh, how do you do that mitzvah? the Bezdin, which is the authority of Torah Sheba'al Peh, see the new they see or they accept the testimony of the new moon, and then they say Makudesh. They declare it with the mouth. Ashetikru Osam. From the Bezdin, who are the living embodiment of Torah Sheba'al Peh, carried in the rabbis, right? And they're the ones who say Makudesh. They very amazing to keep in mind. Right? There's probably even more connections. Just one that was in my head and just flew out as I was in the middle of talking about Kiddush HaKodesh. Right, but there's amazing connections, and similar common denominators between our very first holiday and our very last holiday. So here's one more. And again, most Surah had the Rambam in mind. So the Rambam says something very interesting. You know, um, that he considers part of the miracle. The Ramban also says it was the big failure, but it's possible to reconcile the two. It's not, as I'll explain. All right, the Rambam, when that short halacha, short two halachas, going over the story of Chanukah. So he says, "V'chazra hamalchus liYisrael," right? That part of the story, the miracle, is that we restored our kingdom, and the Chashmonaim set up a king. Right? So this is that part of the greatness of what happened. Now we know the Ramban says something almost the opposite, and says, why were the Chashmonaim killed out? That we know Hordes killed them out, and why was that whole bloodline obliterated? Right. So the Ramban says Shavru al Tzavos. Okay, they transgressed Yaakov Avinu's command of Lo Yosser Shevet Yehuda. Yehuda should always be the king. Right, but it's not. It's possible to reconcile the two. Because of course, part of the miracle was the restoration of the Jewish kingdom. That's part of the miracle. Except that what they should have done is maybe on an emergency basis, taken the malchus for themselves, but afterwards they should have handed it over, right? So so the Ramban could agree that part of the miracle was the restoration of the malchus, but just they should have handed it over, right? But the Rambam for sure says, Chazra Malchus Yisrael, right? So now Rosh Hashanah LeMalchei Yisrael. How do we count their years? From Nisan. Nisan is Rosh Hashanah, the Malchei Yisrael, Jewish kings. We count the years of their kingdom. They complete the cycle on Rosh Chodesh Nisan's Malchus, right? And it makes sense. We got liberated that month, and we became subjects of Hashem alone. Our kingdom is on, is on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So part of it goes Chazra Malchus, Rosh Hashanah Malchei Yisrael, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It's amazing. But here's where it gets even deeper. That we know Al Pi Zohar, in the famous piece of Pasach Elio, right? That Sfaradim say before they daven. We go through the midas, and we say the midah of Malchus Peh, Torah Sheba'al Peh, Karinallah. Malchus is the midah of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Right? Torah Tiferes, Malchus is Torah Sheba'al Peh. Right? It's amazing, all these connections, that liberation, Malchus, Torah Sheba'al Peh, right? Kiddush HaChodesh, which also is Peh. Man Malki, who's called King Rabban, and the rabbis are the kings, right? All right. So we're laying out a lot of dots, but now it's time to connect the dots. And please do not be disheartened. We will go full circle in just a few short minutes. The idea is like this. Right? The difference between Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is the interpretation of Torah, which There's no concept that doesn't need to be interpreted and explained. Even the most basic ideas like you know, you know gravity, right? Right? We yearn to understand them and explain them. Because a life without explanation. It's like so life would be a mystery, but an incomprehensible one. Right? And there would be no joy in that. The greatness of the beauty of things is that they could be understood, be explained. And sometimes, you look at the sunlight, it's nice. Then you hear someone, poetically describe sunlight. And then you see the sun, so you see it in literally see it in new light, right? It opens your eyes to the beauty. Even for things that are visible, right? Perfectly visible. Sometimes when someone explains it to you using beautiful adjectives, yeah, well, makes you appreciate, right? To you know, there's the truth, but then there's like how you put that truth deep into your mind and deep into your heart. What do you appreciate it? And that's what an explanation is for. An explanation is for. An explanation could be even just to put it in words, to describe the beauty of the sunlight, the way the poets do, good poets, right? When they're doing what they should do, to use the power of the mouth to bring out the beauty, right? And why does it work? Think about it. Why does it work? Right? Because the eyes, just they see images, but, the meaning and significance and beauty, right? The that's in the head, right? And how you interpret the image and the putting it into words, the explanation brings out that beauty. That's food for the mind to process what the eyes are seeing, right? Because an animal also sees, and a person of very little intelligence and no mind and no heart also sees blind. But he's not full of appreciation. People that look and it's wondrous and they're blown away by the beauty of creation. People that are blown away with the beauty of creation are working with their minds, not just they're not just getting visual data and not just getting sound bites. They're working with their mind to interpret and internalize, unpack what they're seeing and what they're hearing. And sometimes, if you don't do it naturally, that's what a good explanation could do. And that's the crazy irony, that a person could look at see a view, right? Look out his window day in, day out, same view, same old, same old, same old. And then, try to imagine this. It's not perfect. And some guy comes and says a poem. Yeah, I want to share a poem, right? And he talks about the beautiful sunlight and the lush green hills and the blue green, waters of the river flowing and foaming up as they go over the rocks. It's beautiful, beautiful. And he says, buddy, I'm describing the view from your window. What you call same old, same old, same old. That's what this poem is describing. Yeah, sadly, that's the way it is. Sometimes, the words, a narrative is all mental, right? I'm putting into words thoughts. And so that's the food for the mind. That's the food for the mind. Just working with your eyes and ears alone without involving the mind, you won't see any of the beauty of what you're seeing. You won't hear the beauty of what you're hearing. And the food of the mind is language, right? Language is the words, it's thoughts. And that's why sometimes people can be blown away by a piece of poetry and not be blown away by looking at the landscape with their own eyes that poetry is describing because poetry hits you in the mind and in the heart, right? The visual just hits the retina, right? So, to have intellectual and emotional appreciation, you got to work with the mind. And that's what an explanation does, right? Especially if, if someone understands, and is able to unpack, something better than you, and that's what the beauty of an explanation is. So let's put it in Kabbalistic terms, right? The data itself is the pure light, right? The explanation is the kli, the vessel that holds that light. Without the explanation, that light is lost on you, even though you're seeing it, but you're not able to process what you're seeing. You're hearing it, but you're not able to appreciate what you're hearing. Good explanation unlocks it for you. Right? But we know from the media, right, that sometimes you could explain things away, use the narrative to actually cover up. Explain something in a way that you're covering up what you don't want people to realize, and emphasizing the aspects that you want to overemphasize. Sometimes the explanation can actually obscure the thing that they're describing. They'll say they're explaining it to you, right? But they're really obscuring the true beauty. Their narrative is a cover. It's covering over, right? The real beauty, right? That's to have the just to show that even when we're not talking about an evil agenda to sell people slander, lashon hara, or sell people on falsehood. You want to know an example of that? Those are those science books or science lectures that totally kill the beauty of the natural laws that they're trying to explain. Because they're the guy who's saying it over, he's so dry and he's so boring, and he's just using mathematical symbols, right? He's killing it. He's killing it. So even if he's telling the truth, he's killing it. Right? Now, the Rambam says you get Avos Hashem by looking at the wonders of creation. So I enroll in this guy's science class, and the guy might be even a frum guy. He's not trying to cover up. He's not trying to cover up. Anything. He's a religious scientist, and he also believes this is the wonders of creation. Problem is his explanations stink, and he's boring as hell, right? And he says things over so dry and so mathematical. And said, I'd get more just going out to the wilderness and observing those things that you're describing. So, mathematically and chemically and technically, you're killing it for me, right? So, but of course, you can have the guy who has a smooth tongue and he's killing it for you just the same, right? He's giving you a false interpretation. He's superimposing a fake beauty, So he's good. He's dynamic, like the average anchorman on CNN. Not that good, right? But there are people who have smooth tongues, right? Smooth tongues like Adam Bullshift, right? They have smooth tongues. They say, Schiff. They say just pure Adam Schiff, right? But they say it so smoothly. So because it sounds good, you think that they're embellishing the facts, sharpening the facts. Not sharpening the facts. They're clouding over the facts. They're warping the facts. The question is whether you have an explanation that reveals and unpacks the beauty of the pure data, right? Or do you have an explanation that ruins the whole thing, or you have an explanation that really spins falsehood around it? And that's just between our Torah Shabbal Peh. That is the basic difference. The basic difference between our Torah Shabbal Peh and the academia of Yovan, or the academia of Greece, right? Secular culture, secular science. Our Torah Shabbal Peh is to bring out the beauty of the Torah, right? And the beauty and everything we discuss, Maisa Bereshis, right? With the Kabbalah, it's to bring out godless Habore and to show everything's Bashkocha Pratis, right? It's a type of explanation that unpacks and gives you a grip on seeing the true beauty and depth of the Torah, right? It's clean, right? But sometimes but as opposed to fake Bible criticism or the way the Reform and Reconstructionists, they say they're doing. There's actually those that have the audacity to say we're this is the Torah Shabbal Peh. We're interpreting the Torah. The Orthodox are a bunch of Sadducees. They're the stupid. Some guy who said that. Or this, I think, was some Reform leader. The Orthodox, they're the stupid. They're the Sadducees, right? They're the stupid because they take everything so literally. We're the ones toward the Prussian. We're the Pharisees. We're interpreting things. No, they're not interpreting. They're deviating. They call it interpretations to deviate from the spirit of the Chumash. They're not giving explanations that unlock and reveal and embellish and expand the spirit of the Chumash. They're killing the spirit of the Chumash. They're killing the mitzvahs. There's a very big difference, right? By the way, historically speaking, the Mitzvahs, the Jews that fell prey to the Hellenists, and fell for their stuff and became Hellenists, they were the Stukim, right? Because when you dump the Torah Shabbal Peh, so now you dump the real approach that taps into the spirit of Torah that's invisible, and this explanation reveals the invisible spirit. Once you dump that, and you just want to say you have to superimpose else because the Torah needs to be interpreted, like anything needs to be interpreted. Who can dump the Torah Shabbal to interpret it as they wish, whereas the Torah Shabbal is committed to but explaining in a manner that unlocks the invisible spirit that the eyes and ears can't naturally see and hear. That's the explanation of that. It puts the invisible light of Torah into a vessel. Into a vessel. All right. That's the basic difference, but it goes more than that, right? Not only is the Torah Shabbal Peh the faithful interpretation, right? Before we get there, before we take it to one level higher, I want to now go back to at least unpack, the term of uminosar kankan, right? The kankan. So now the Gemara says that Rameir had a student, right? I think it was Rameir had a student that could be mitaras hasharetz b'kufnun kan, right? He could make 150 arguments to argue that a sheretz, right, an impure, creepy, crawly thing is actually tar. But of course, that's all fake argumentation because the Torah says black on white, that it makes you impure. But he could give 150 arguments between mitar and the sheriff, right? Kufnun. So of course, if you could, and that's you could make so that illustrates so that you could make a fake argument, right? That that's totally made arguments that are totally against reality, against the reality what the Torah wrote black and white. But yeah, if you want to work with pure logic and ignore the facts, I'll give you a narrative, 150 reasons why the sheretz is tar, right? Kan. Now, if you can make 150 just in one direction, you can make 150 in the opposite direction of why, which would be in line with the truth, right? And that's kan, right? Because all explanations and arguments are just a vessel to hold the thing that's being explained, right? To give you a intellectual and emotional grip on it. That shouldn't just be data that's hitting your retina and hitting your eardrums. But should you see the wisdom and beauty and depth and meaning in it, right? What gives you the vessel to grab on to the invisible spirit is the explanation. But the explanation could be totally false. Like with kufnun, the kankan, the jug, right, which is the brain, which interprets the information that's coming from the eyes and ears, the kankan, right? So the kankan, it could be, or you could have, it could argue both ways. It could go just like it'd be kufnun, right? 150 arguments, of falsehood. Or the same token, could be on making 150 arguments towards the truth. That's kan. That's what it alludes to. The ability to process either way, and that's what's so dangerous. It's what's so dangerous. Is your mind working straight? So Chazal say, "Al tistako bakankan." Don't look at the jug itself like a liberal college professor. He's got 10 PhDs, but these guys are the most reality challenged people in the world. They make the craziest arguments from their ivory tower. They live in a world of theory. He totally detached from reality. That's what the Mishnah is saying. You can have a yashan dafilu chadash aimbo, an old barrel, and it doesn't even have the newest, lowest grade wine in it, right? And the barrel refers to the brain, the kan, the ability to reason total falsehood or reason true. But you have to know that you're susceptible, just like you could reason and explain correctly, could easily reason to the point of anti-truth, right? So don't look at the credentials of the con because the age, experience, like those college professors who were a bunch of LSD users in the '60s who are now, now they have 10 PhDs and they're totally, dominating the ivory tower of academia. That's the Kankan Yoshon Shafil Chodosh Einbo. Right? They can actually make a few true arguments also, but doesn't mean that the mind is actually being applied there. They may have the potential, doesn't mean so. That's Kankan. You can make Kufnun Tamim to be Mitar de Sheretz, right? The mind can be equally used to interpret things falsely as it's interpreted correctly. You have to be very careful. Look at the content. Make sure that the explanation is really backed up by hard fact. That's an explanation that's revealing. That's the way. Look at the con. Don't look at the con. Look at the exteriors of the credentials of the explainer. Look at the actual thing in of itself and decide whether his explanation is true to the spirit of what he's trying to explain. It reflects reality at all. Because you can have a Kankan Yoshon, right? A professor left over from the '60s, 10 PhDs. I feel Chodosh doesn't have the most basic understanding of a kid as far as, real understanding, being connected to reality. Even a kid will be better connected to reality than he is. Well, you find sometimes, so simple people have common sense, and these big intellectuals or politicians that live in these ivory towers, they only lack common sense, because their narrative overcomes substance and fact, and that's when the vessel obscures the light. It's not containing the light; it's obscuring the light, and that's Yavan. Yavan. Yavan is all their sexual cultures called Choshech. They called enlightenment, and they were really beautiful. Yaftal Kimli Yefes. They're called beauty, but beauty is only external, right? Is that beauty reflective of the inner content, or it's a beautiful narrative totally divorced from reality, like the impeachment hoax? Bunch of smooth tongues, right? And we know it's all at best hearsay, at best. And the other stuff is just, they're trying to construct a narrative, and it's not. Parts of it aren't even based on hearsay, but even what they would call substantive, right, is hearsay, not hard fact. Smooth narrative, right? No facts, no facts, no substance. So it's Greece had beauty, but the challenge is that the beauty should be perfectly reflective of the inner essence and the inner content, right? So ufortzu homicide, they broke through the wall, right? The Torah is called a wall, right? Because it is the barrier between truth and falsehood, right? That's why Chazal say, right, that Share and the walls of the base of Mikdash, the base of Mikdash per se is called Yerushalayim, right? That throughout Chazal we find that the Torah is compared to a wall in general and the walls of Yerushalayim in particular. Our legs used to stand in war, by the gates of Jerusalem. Chazal say it's to be read this. What caused our legs to stand in war? The gates of Yerushalayim, the walls that used to be Isaac and Torah, right? It's very deep with that. It means we won against because our Jewish battles are not just about political struggle; it's about truth versus falsehood. How do we win those wars? With the power of Torah learning, which is called the wall. Yes, build the wall, right? The wall which the Torah gives us clarity that differentiates between truth and falsehood. Talmud Chacham has to be mamid varm kachoma, right? He has to say solid definition, solid like a wall, right? Solid like a wall. Right? It's the wall, the snake, they Medrashim Koheles says they asked the snake, Lama to back there. So why do you live under fences? Right? So the said because Ani Paratzi Gidrashom. When I made Adam succumb, I broke the cosmic wall, the wall between truth and falsehood. Falsehood didn't permeate reality as a result of the sin that the as Nefesh Chaim says, knowledge means connection in Hebrew. Eitz Hadas, or now good and evil are hopelessly mixed. And the Torah is restoring the wall between truth and falsehood. Yes, build the wall, right? The Yavonim, the Greeks broke the walls. It's like they blurred truth and falsehood. And and a way to the easiest way to blur truth and falsehood is to explain truth away, give a explanation and a spin on the facts that either covers them over, warps them, and you build a verbal bridge that leads from the fact straight into falsehood. A good narrator, right? Good guy, good storyteller, good story spinner. He starts with fact and he spins it and he builds a verbal bridge that it winds up by an absurd conclusion, but you don't catch how he led you there because he never stopped talking. So it's like a verbal bridge, and it all sounded nice. Next thing you know, he's saying crazy stuff. And it started with fact. And really, it's not tightly related, but in its imaginary narrative, there's like some type of bridge and flow, right? That gets there. Sometimes it's a nonsensical flow, but it all sounded good. That's a narrative, beautiful speech, right? But that's not a real explanation. Real explanation should give you a grip on the facts and unlock the facts, not construct around the facts, right? But it goes deeper than that, right? So our Torah Sheba'al Peh is yes, it's the power of explanation, counter to the Greeks' power of narrative, right? They had the beauty of language. That's why there's a halacha that you could write. According to Shimon Gamliel, you can only write the Kisvei HaKodesh, holy books, in Greek. If it's not going to be in Hebrew, then at least let it be in Greek. Otherwise, it won't have a din of Kisvei HaKodesh, of a holy book. They have beautiful language, right? Beautiful language, beautiful narrative, beautiful ability to explain things, right? Right, but they misuse it, to a choshech, they bring darkness, as opposed to our Torah Sheba'al Peh, even though it's all verbal, but it unlocks the light. It's a vessel to get a grip on the light. That you can put that light. The light won't just be on your retina. You can also put it in your mind and in your heart. Right. That's our Torah Sheba'al Peh. Right. So now So now is the time to differentiate. I'm sorry. When I do these off the cuff ones, my mind just keeps on rolling and rolling and rolling, which is not a bad thing if you're me and you're not the victim who has to listen to me. Right. The difference between the Torah Sheba'al Peh in the land of Israel versus the Torah Sheba'al Peh that we in Golus, right? In Golus, it's called we're in darkness. We said the Beis Hamikdash brings light to the world, right? The miracle of Chanukah happened in Israel, right? The land which is where that is the land of prophecy. That is the land Eretz Asher and Hashem Elokecha. It's called the eyes of Hashem are there. It's the place of vision. It's the place of vision. It's a place where you can see with your own eyes God, actually visibly fulfilling His promises, like giving you a triple crop before Shemitah comes in, right? Or everyone comes to the temple 3 times a year, and while everyone was away from home, no billion moved in. You weren't invaded. You abandoned the borders, right? It all went to the center of Israel, and you still come back. You find your home not still empty the way you left it, right? All these promises, Israel's where the ideas of the Torah are not just ideas that we believe in; it's ideas where they become physically manifest. Even the oral law of Eretz Yisrael, right, is on a higher level than the oral law developed, that we have in Golis. That the oral law in Israel makes things so clear that because of the explanation, we see the beauty that we couldn't see before. Right? So that's why something very interesting in the texts of the oral law that were developed in Israel, right, like the Yerushalmi, like the Zohar that was written in Israel. So use the Lashon, when coming to make the point, say ta chazi, come see. Even though they're talking, they're explaining, but they call it come see, right? Because the Torah Sheba'al Peh of Eretz Yisrael is, it's oral, right? But it's to the point that it dispels all the darkness and you have a clarity of perspective. right? That's the greatness of the, and it's, right. I, right. I think also in Mishnaic texts also it says bo re'eh, come see, right? Even though it's explaining, but it gives a clarity of vision. It gets all the confusion away, and it clarifies your perspective. Right? Yeah, and that's the special power that the oral law has in Israel. It's the candle. There's darkness, shrouding, shrouding, the facts are shrouded over, obscured by darkness, and the Torah Shabbat Ped, that darkness, right? You know, um, but in Chutzlarts, in the Talmud Bavli, it uses the term Toshma, come here. And that's what the Gemara says on the pasuk. Hashem put me in darkness, like those dead to the world. Zu Talmud Shobava. That's Talmud Bavli, because the Talmud was written when we were in the depths of this exile and off the land of Israel. Like there was nothing left. At least Yerushalmi was written in the land of Israel. The Bavli was, both after the destruction of the temple and in Golus, right? And the Bavli is that's why the Bavli is so much dialectic. The sugyas are so much longer than the Yerushalmi, and the Yerushalmi is willing to just bring a proof from a pasuk, which in the Bavli is like long, long argumentations, because in Golus we're blind. And we have to use the dialectic to like feel in the dark, right? To feel our way around, right? And at the end, we don't necessarily see the truth in so much as we eliminated all the other possibilities. But we have to go through a possibility raise every single how many because it's one huge process of elimination. And we believe that by process of elimination, we have the distilled truth, as opposed to just seeing the distilled like process of elimination. That's where we have to work when we're in the darkness. And by the way, that's why the Gemara is so lengthy, the Talmud Bavli, even more than Yerushalmi, so lengthy with so many arguments. And then even though it'll revert back to what it said originally, but it won't stick with that when it first said it. It'll first check all the other possibilities, and until it's sure, right? Because we're taking countermeasures to the fact that we're blind to the truth, and we could reassure ourselves that we have the truth because we eliminated all the other possibilities. But the Yerushalmi and the Zohar, the Torah Sheba'al Peh, so explains things that you see the truth directly. You see the truth, right? Over there, the Talmud Bavli, where we're totally blind, is we eliminate all the falsehood. And by the way, that's also the reason why the Achronim write much longer than the Rishonim. The Rishonim just saw, even though they also lived in time of exile, but they were much keener on seeing the truth directly. The Achronim, have all the augmentation. And it's really an act of double checking, troubleshooting, as a countermeasure, to make sure that we're not being fooled. These are the two aspects of Torah Shabbat Peh. There's a Torah Shabbat Peh that gives us the tools to eliminate falsehood, right? And it's a way to survive in the blindness of Golas. And that also we got from Chanukah because it's a Chag of Torah Shabbat Peh. But what applies, sadly, ever since the Churban Abayis, is the aspect of Torah Shabbat Peh that weeds out falsehood. Right? But there's an aspect of Torah Shabbat Peh that causes the light, that gives us a vessel to see the light. Gives us like glasses, a vessel to see the light. It's a kankan. No circumkan is better than all the other kankan. It holds the light, right? And it pierces the darkness of the night, right? So that's Mosar Kankanim, Nasa Nesa Shoshanim, B'nai Bina, Yemei Shimona, right? We're the children of Bina, right? That the explanation, your understanding, and the thing that you're understanding, you should be like first generation, second generation. It should be like a direct continuum, like from mother to child, right? There's the concept, and then there's the understanding comes from the concept, right? And it should be a direct continuum, it's not superimposed and not forced in and not, smoothing over. It's like mother son, but it goes deeper than that. You have to excuse me, the golden retriever, it's acting up. I'm coming right back. Don't go anywhere. And Sonny, you want to say hello to everybody? Yeah. Sorry, big as she is, she doesn't reach the camera. You got to forgive me. And by the way, let me tell you, folks, I will. This Hanukkah, it's just a time when the energies are just flowing. So I'm sorry I ramble on, but I promise you during non-holidays I will have short to the point Ma'amorim. So don't give up on me. Don't give up on this channel. Anyway, I just want to get to another aspect of the Torah Shabbat Peh, right? Which is what Hanukkah, the light of Hanukkah represents. So we're saying our narrative is light, because we're explaining the thing itself, and the explanation enables you to see in the thing itself, stuff that you couldn't see without the explanation, but it's the light of the thing itself. Our Torah is a kli to hold that light. And that's what it means, nes pachashemen. The miracle was that jug held so much oil, right? And that's the explanation. Mi noser kantan, the emphasis, nes pachashemen, the emphasis is on the jug, the explanation, the kankan. The Torah Shabbat has the kankan, right? Is the reliable jug of understanding, the bina, right? That holds the thing itself, right? So the emphasis is on the jug, that the kli, the vessel, which is the explanation, held all the 8 days worth of oil in it, right? That's what it means. So even the first day is a miracle. It says that 8 days it was holding 8 days worth of oil. The emphasis is on the jug. It miraculously, that small jug miraculously contained within it 8 days worth of oil. Right? The emphasis on the kan, and that's the Torah Shabbat Peh. It's like the glasses, like the no, the explanation that gives the mind and heart a grip on the thing that the senses see, a grip on the data of the Torah that the Torah Shabbat relays, a grip on all the beauty and all the inner depth. What gives us a grip on it is it's the kli, the vessel that holds the light. It is what holds the oil. All right, so the Yavanim broke, with their narrative, want to blur the boundaries. They blur the boundaries between truth and falsehood, and that's choshech, that's darkness. That's fortzu chometz midai timul kashmai. They defile all the oils. Oil refers to wisdom. We mentioned. Like the Gemara says, the people in the Kol were very wise because part of their staple diet was oil. And that's where they brought the oil for the menorah from, and it was 4 days away. So until they could get new oils, it took eight days, 4 days to go up, 4 days back. So they defiled the mind, they defiled the wisdom with their fake narrative, fake explanations that blur the truth. What happens in CNN or in any liberal college, right? And what any Democrat does in the impeachment hearings, a narrative that obscures the truth and warps the truth, right? Sounds good, right? But it's very, very divorced and disconnected. I feel that Kankan, the old Kankan of Nancy Pelosi, I feel chodesh ein ba, right? Doesn't even have the day old wine, the common sense of a child in her, right? But got to say the truth that we got to back our president. Okay, but there's one more point over here, and this would go full circle to Pesach. Why they legislated against Kiddush HaChodesh, right? Which is a mitzvah we got by Pesach, right? And we also have the idea of Malchus, right? Our Torah Shabbat Peh is not just interpretation. That hey, as if with the interpretation, all we did was bring more joy to our lives, but didn't make any difference cosmically because the truth is the truth. The truth is the truth, and truth is the truth. Right? And the only question is whether we understand and appreciate the truth or not. No, it goes beyond that. The cosmos actually changes to the extent that the Jewish people understand. The cosmos really changes in accordance with their understanding. Right? And that's what God wants us. He wants us to be kings, leaders, kingship, malchus. That our interpretation of the Torah is going to, just like Torah is the blueprint of reality, our understanding of that blueprint is reality will now have to conform with our understanding of reality. Quantum physics. The measurement makes the thing. So that's like another thing. Our interpretive Torah actually creates. It's not just creative that we have room to get our creative juices out and coming up with a chiddush, but it's literally creation. It's light, like the light of the menorah. First thing God created was light. Light. It's creative. Like light itself is the beginning of creation, right? And that's now this first of all that's true. Firstly, legally, first and foremost, by Kiddush HaChodesh. If Esdin, if the Jewish court that has to declare a new month, if they don't do it, there is no month. There is no month. If God forbid we would lose the calendar that was empowered by the rabbis, there would be no Yom Tov, right? We make the calendar, literally. Ashetikru also. And even if we're wrong, we're right, because if we understand the calendar that way, the cosmos conforms. We just have to do our part to be loyal to the spirit of the Torah to the best of our ability. And the understanding that we have of Torah becomes the mode of conduct of the cosmos. It's creative. We're kings. And that's what God wants. He liberated us from Egypt that we should run the world. We work for him. And he, he's the king. And he delegated us to be the vehicle of his kingship to run the world. How do we run the world? By interpreting, explaining his Torah, and in accordance with our explaining of his Torah, that's how the cosmos runs. And you have to realize that the Torah is a very complex equation, or she used to liken it to x squared is equal to 4. X could be 2, it could be -2, but it can't be 3, right? Reform Judaism reconstructors, that's like saying x squared equals 4, and say x is 3. Obviously wrong. It doesn't fit the equation, right? We have to stick within the equation. Be faithful to all the scriptures. Be faithful to all the things that are handed down orally from Moshe in the name of God, because these are things we may not deviate from. They set up the equation, the algorithm, but there's plenty of room for interpretation if you're faithful and you don't deviate. And we decide with our interpretation whether it'll be a 2 or a -2. It's x squared is equal to 4. We decide whether it's 2 or -2. We control the cosmos, right? It is, and so now the prime examples by the calendar itself. We declare the calendar. If we don't declare Rosh Chodesh Nisan, there won't be Pesach. There just won't be. It's not that there's Pesach, but we missed it. No, there won't be, right? We declare the calendar, but it goes to the point that I believe it's Yerushalmi, Lakela, Gomer Alai, that God will mamash finish off and run the world in accordance with how we interpret the Torah, right? That if so now we know that if a girl, God forbid, was raped under the age of 3, she's still a virgin. She's still a basula, because we say that the membranes grow back. That's what we say in halacha. The difference is that she can marry a kohen gadol, right? Kohen marry a basula, right? A total virgin. Right? Less than 3 basula sechot. Less than 3, it grows back. It's not called that. Right? It's not permitted to, God forbid, but it's not suicide. She's still a virgin, grows back, right? After the age of 3, that's no longer the case, right? So it's like this. Biologically, she was already 3 years old, right? And then God forbid she got raped, right? Biologically, if you count days, right? You'll say she had lived, or she was already the amount of 3 years worth of days she lived already when she got raped. But then Besdin comes and decides that has to be a leap year. So they insert another month. So it pushes off her birthday legally by one month, because they decided right when she got raped. No, we're not. It's not the next month yet. We're being ma'aber to Shana, right? Her biology will conform to Besdin's declaration that it's not a full year yet, and another month has been inserted. So she's not 3 years old yet. Amazing. Look at it. It's called Hashem finished off for us. Our Torah creates. So that's another amazing difference. Our Torah is Malchus. We're kings. And God liberated us from Egypt, not just to be free from Paro, but to be leaders of the world. And we do it with the power of Torah Shabbat Peh. Our interpretation of the Torah will determine the how the world itself will run. The world will conform with that aspect of the Torah that we reveal. The Torah is a hyper complex equation that can be solved with certain multiple possibilities, like Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. But they're both possibilities that will fit the equation tight, like x squared equals 4, positive 2, negative 2. Reform and reconstructions, they try to say x squared equals 4, so x is 5. That right? Get it? That's, Orthodox Judaism is plenty creative, but it's very faithful to the axioms. And it brings out the possibilities that all the different possibilities that there are with, between the axioms, right? Implicit in the axioms, right? So, and the world will actually change in accordance with the way, we rule, in accordance with the possibility that we bring out. That'll be how reality, the cosmos, will function during the time that interpretation is being taught and being, applied and employed. Right? That's another, qualitative difference between our Torah Sheba'al Peh and their academia, right? Even when their academia is true, even like in their hard sciences, where they're not, inserting any narrative, like there was this evolution thing, that's all speculation and narrative, right? But even when they're just, explaining E equals MC squared, right? Or they're explaining, and all the other laws that there are, and they're explaining good, but all they're doing is unlocking the beauty that's there. Our Torah Sheba'al Peh doesn't just unlock the beauty; it brings out possibilities, right? It's light. It's light. It's like lighting a candle in the darkness. It brings out new light. So it wasn't just that dispelled the darkness; it brings out a new light. It's a new candle, right? So that's the difference between our Torah Sheba'al Peh and their academia, even when it's good, and let alone, our Torah Sheba'al Peh versus their academia and media. That's totally false. These are the ideas I want to share with you tonight. Do me a favor, right? You suffered so much. You listened to me for an hour and a half. The least you could do is to subscribe, right? Let there be, so please subscribe to this channel, and please subscribe, and like this video, even if it was too long. Now, I promise that, moving forward, I'll try to, control my thoughts. You can be assured that when it's not a Yom Tov, Yom Tov just do this to my mind, the joy just, causes, very stimulating, right? But, you'll see, I'll be good. I'll be good moving forward. I'll be good. I'll give you shorter and more condensed and more concise presentations. I'll look to Chanukah, everybody.